Hi there everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Tim. Welcome to Buxton Mind, Body and Soul, where we are discussing some mental health diagnosis tools that GPs use and other practitioners use when you go for any diagnostic procedures or anything like that to do with mental health. Last week we covered the PHQ-9, which is the way that they monitor depression within an individual. This week we're going to go through its counterpart, the GAD-7 anxiety check. And it's exactly the same sort of premise as the PHQ-9. There's only 7 questions on the anxiety check, and I'll tell you now, I have never been to an appointment where I've not been given both of these. If I've been given any of these checks to be doing, I've always been given the both of them to go through. So they kind of work together to assess, is the problem that you've got currently depression related, or is it anxiety related, or is it a mixture of both? And you'll be given them, I was given them digitally in my last sets of appointments when I was doing CBT, and they came through. I was able to do them on my phone. And the PHQ-9 was always the first one that I did, and then the GAD-7 was the next one that I had to do. So these are the 2 main diagnostic processes that are certainly used within the UK anyway, when you're going to, say, counselling, or you're going to CBT, or if you go to the GP and you claim to them, I've been feeling anxious, or I've been feeling depressed. Even if you go to the GP and say, I've been feeling depressed, you will probably be given one of these as well, just to check that that depression has not got something to do with anxiety as well. So we're going to go through all the questions that are on the GAD-7 so that you know, if you're feeling anxious about your appointment, you know what you are looking into, what you are getting yourself into when you go into these appointments, and you're not feeling nervous about actually attending the appointment itself. So let's get into it. So please do subscribe to the channel if these things are helping you. I very much appreciate it if you did. I'm just trying to help as many people as I possibly can using my experience with depression and anxiety, because I've lived with both for half of my life now. So yeah, I try and use my experiences to try and help as many people as I possibly can. So this is something that I remember when I was going for my first appointments, and it took me weeks to pluck up the courage, probably months to pluck up the courage to go to the GP and tell them, I think I've got something wrong with my mental health. I think I've got depression or something like that. I've been very fortunate in my life. The GPs and everybody that I've encountered within the medical world has been very good to me. They've listened to what I've got to say. They've taken it on board, and they've actually helped me through it. I recognise that that's not always the case, but for the most part, the world is a lot more accepting of mental ill health than it used to be. And if you go to a GP and they're more likely to be able to help you than not. So these are the forms that I was given. So go and watch last week's video for the PHQ-9, and then let's go through the GAD-7. So exactly the same as the PHQ-9. This is asking you to monitor yourself over the last 2 weeks, and it also wants you to answer these questions off the cuff. It doesn't want you kind of thinking about them too hard. Just go through, read the question, and check it off straight away as soon as you get a gut reaction. Well, I think it's been every single day, or I think it's been none of those days. I don't remember anything off the top of my head. It would stick with you if you remembered something like that. So yeah, just go off the cuff with it. Don't spend too long on these questions, because that's not what it wants. You could analyze your entire life for the past 2 weeks and probably find a way of checking every single box as nearly every day. You probably, if you are struggling with depression or anxiety, you probably could do that. But it doesn't want that. It wants you to get that off the cuff reaction, that straight away instant reaction. Oh, it's some days, it's most days. So it phrases the overall question as, over the last 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by the following problems? How often have you been bothered by them? And then you've got not at all, which is a score of 0, several days, score of 1, more than half days, 2, or nearly every day, 3. So it works exactly the same as the PHQ-9 from last week. And then you've got 7 questions to answer, and that will total up to a score out of 21, with the sort of scores down at the bottom of 0 to 4 being minimal anxiety, 5 to 9 being mild, 10 to 14 being moderate, and 15 to 21 being severe. I have fallen into the severe category when I have done this before, because quite a lot of these questions, yeah, you can easily figure out a way of answering them nearly every day. So yeah, I've fallen into the severe category on this. I'm probably down in the mild category nowadays, but yeah, up at the time when I was going through my CBT, when I started my CBT, I was in that severe category with the anxiety. So, question number 1, over the last 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by the following problems? Feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge? Well, that's just anxiety, right? That's the whole definition of anxiety, feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge. The anxious is even in the question. How often have you actually been feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge? So, this is not you standing in a queue for a roller coaster and feeling anxious about going for that roller coaster. This is not you watching a horror film and feeling anxious about the next jump scare that's about to come out. This is when nothing is happening around you, or you've got this severe anxiety of being in a specific place, so such as being in a crowded place, going into a supermarket, walking in an open space, all of these things. How often are you feeling like you're nervous, you're thinking people are watching you, you're thinking you're being watched, you're thinking you're being judged? How often have you struggled to get out of the front door? You've been stuck in your own home because you're scared of going outside because of people that you might see. How often has that bothered you? If you're scared to go outside, if you're nervous to go outside, and you've put off going outside, or you've cancelled plans or something like that, then you tick that box without a doubt. You are, how many days have you had that? You're definitely going to be checking that box. You know, if you've been in a supermarket and you've been kind of looking around, checking people's faces, like, are they looking at me or anything like that? Check that box, because you know you're on edge if that's the case. For example, I know as of this video going out, I'm going out tonight to watch my friend in a boxing match. I'm going to be nervous at that event, more so than sort of a neurotypical person would be, because I don't like crowds and I don't like new places, and it's not my scene. I'm just going to support a friend. I wouldn't ever go and watch a boxing match of my own accord, because it's just not my scene, the jeering crowds and stuff like that. I've been to like football matches before. It's not my scene at all. So I'm going to be nervous and on edge the entire time that I'm there, and I'm well aware of that fact. And I'm preparing myself, because I'm recording this a few days ahead. I'm preparing myself for this Saturday already, so that I can go into that as least anxious as I possibly can, because I need to know what I can do in order to figure that all out. So yeah, that's preparation for that. But yeah, I would definitely, that's a day definitely that I already know that I'm going to be anxious, and it's going to happen. So yeah, feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge kind of covers a wide variety. It's very vague, so most likely that's going to be one of your higher scores on the list. Highly likely anyway, I believe anyway. Number 2, not being able to stop or control worrying. So this kind of follows on from the first point in terms of, you know, if you're nervous, anxious, or on edge about something, you're worrying about something. You've got something that's playing on your mind, and that can be something which comes and goes. If that comes and goes, then you're not checking the box. That's not a period where it is. But if it comes and you're worried about something, and then that event happens and nothing bad happens, and you're still worrying about it several hours later, you're not able to stop or control it. Or if you have several days worrying about the same thing, you're not able to stop or control worrying about it. So it's kind of like a step up from the last one, where the first one, you've been bothered about being nervous, anxious, or on edge for like a specific amount of time, like a small amount of time potentially, but it's happened multiple days. This one, being able to stop or control worrying, you've let it get out of hand. It's not being controlled. It's not being kept back within yourself. So if you've got several days of doing that, you're checking that number 1 box. If you've got more than half of your days doing that, you're going to be checking that number 2 box. For me, that one was always probably the step down from feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge, unless I had spent the last 2 weeks being anxious about the same thing, in which case I would say, if I'm anxious about exactly the same thing for several days in a row, I'm not able to control that. So I would often be ticking exactly the same number for that. If my anxiety is dotted between several different places, then I'm not worrying about the same thing as much, so I would consider it being a little bit less, but you're still worrying. So you're still worrying about a variety of different things. If that is like a constant thing and it's completely out of control, then you're absolutely ticking those boxes. So yeah, it's like I say, it's all your gut reaction as soon as you get this question in front of you. How are you interpreting it? Are you interpreting it as you've got loads of different things that are flying through your mind all of the time, in which case, yeah, more than likely you're going to be ticking a high number on that. I often ticked off that it was kind of a lower number because I thought it was more ruminating on things. Because question number 3 is worrying too much about different things. So when you get to doing these, I was doing these forms every week for the duration of my CBT, which was 11 weeks, I think I did CBT for. And I've done multiple bouts of CBT. So I knew this form. Off by heart. So I knew that the next question was coming up. So worrying too much about different things. So your brain being scattered over different things. I'm worried about money, or I'm worried about going out to this event. I'm worried about my housework not being done. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about work. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. I'm worried about... That is obviously worrying about different things. And if you sit there for half an hour and you've got 5 different things going through your mind at all at different times, worrying too much about different things, absolutely you'd be checking that box. So that is something which I find one thing often leads to another with anxiety. You get worried about a certain subject, and then it moves on to the next thing, and it moves on to the next thing, and those things might be linked, but also those things might not be linked. So yeah, worrying too much about different things kind of goes along with those first 2 as well. Is like, this is your anxiety. This is how your anxiety is manifesting. Is it scattering between multiple things? Is it ruminating on a certain thing? This is how is it manifesting within yourself. So you might find that you have nearly every day feeling nervous or anxious or on edge, but you've been concentrated on one thing. So number 2, you might also tick as score 3, but then number 3 you might tick as a score 1 because it's not different things. You might tick it as a 0 even because it's not different things. You've been concentrated on that same thing constantly. For me right now, that's probably a little bit higher actually. That's probably a number 2 for me because I've got a variety of different things, and these are overworld stresses which they're bound to worry me. These are things that are bound to worry me. So like a lot of changes at work at the moment, worrying about providing for my child, financial worries because I've been ill recently. So these are all very realistic things, but do I focus on them? Do I get anxious about them? Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'd probably actually check this one fairly high, despite the fact that it's not necessarily not being able to stop or control worrying. It's just there's so many things that are going through my mind all of the time. Number 4, trouble relaxing. So are you feeling fidgety? Are you flitting about from different things because you can't do one thing? You can't sit and watch TV for a half-hour show without picking your phone up and doing something on there, or needing to go and tidy something up or something like that. Are you really struggling to relax? Are you struggling to get into your hobbies? So one of my big hobbies is video games. I love video games. I would check this higher if I've loaded up a video game, played 20 minutes and gone, nah, I'm not feeling it, I need to go do something else. So I'd check this then. Perhaps I've actually been struggling to record videos this couple of weeks because my mind hasn't been in the right place for it and that. So yeah, having trouble relaxing is definitely a thing for that, because I start thinking about other things that I need to be doing, or other things such as this Saturday with the going to the event. I'm going to be I'm anxious about that, and it's getting sort of worse as time gets closer to it. So I'm starting to struggle to relax and do things. So I end up falling into old habits of just putting YouTube on and not paying attention to it. So trouble relaxing. It's like active relaxing for me. So I struggle reading when I'm anxious. I struggle playing video games when I'm anxious. I'd struggle to record any of these videos when I'm anxious, because I'm it's just one of those, isn't it? I got put off by the siren there. I do apologise. Okay, so that's the first 4. Number 5, being so restless that it is hard to sit still. So constantly fidgeting within your chair, sort of moving around, tapping your foot, tapping your hand. If I'm really anxious, one thing that I do, and I'll do it on my hand because I normally do it on a table, but I will tap my hand. I'll tap my hand if I'm feeling anxious. Sorry if the camera is moving, but I'll be tapping along the entire time. And that's how I think some people have picked up that I do that. This is actually something which is not on this form. This is a physical thing that happens with anxiety sometimes. It's the reason that I tap is my fingers will start going numb when I'm really anxious. It's a symptom that I have, but my fingers will start going numb, and I have to do that, or I have to tap them on something to make sure that feeling stays there, because otherwise I will just be shaking, sort of thing. So and not, I'll struggle to grip things and stuff because my anxiety is getting the best of me. So I will tap my fingers around, and I'll rub my hands together and stuff like that to try and get the feeling back in my hands. So that's my restlessness. And then tapping my foot or constantly shifting your weight and stuff like that when you're trying to relax. I have lovely recliner chairs and sofas in my living room, which I can chill on and relax on. But if I've got it reclined and my feet are, because I'm quite tall, so my feet hang off the edge of the chair, I will sort of flap my foot up and down constantly. And if somebody's sat on the sofa and my foot is in view of their television line, it's very annoying for them. So, it being so restless, it's hard to sit still. That's something that definitely happens with me. I know that. So, it might not be easy to think about these things. I've had years to think of why I tap and why I sort of flex my fingers and stuff like that. I have years to think of that. And I realised some years ago, when I'm really anxious, I get that numbness in my fingers, and it'll spread. Just my fingers. My hands I can feel, but my fingers will start going numb or pins and needly. It took me years to realise that I was doing that. So in the early stages, I was probably not ticking that one quite as high as I probably should have been, because I didn't realise that was something that I have to do. Okay, number 6, becoming easily annoyed or irritable. Anxiety and depression are linked to your emotions, of course they are. So anxiety is like a fear response it's a natural human reaction. It's a fear response of something, but it's a fear response to no stimulus, or stimulus which has not happened yet, or stuff like that. Whereas a fear response is supposed to be for something that is currently happening in order to get you out of danger. A fear response is, of upcoming events, becomes like anxiety, and it makes you irritable. Feeling constantly on edge, it makes you irritable. It makes you snap at people. It makes you not understand where they're coming from, or quickly get annoyed at something that's happening. And it absolutely happens. And it absolutely happens that I've driven away friends because of my anxiety. It happens. And I when I was at the peak of my first really bad bout of anxiety and depression, I was not a nice person to be around. I wasn't. And I was constantly like angry at the world, and I didn't understand any of it. So now, if I start getting anxious and I'll probably end up snapping at somebody once, and then I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I need to settle myself, because I can't go ruining all of these relationships. I lost friends. I lost friends because of it. So yeah, becoming easily annoyed or irritable is definitely something that happens a lot, and something that you've got to recognize is like, actually, yeah, I've been irritable. I've been snapping at people. I've been biting people's heads off for the past few days. This is definitely something that I need to check. I need to put on this now. And then lastly, feeling afraid as if something awful might happen. So this is a little bit specific as to the sort of anxiety that you have got. So I would probably tip this pretty low for myself, despite the fact that I'm obviously nervous about this event that I've just told you about that I'll be going to, this boxing event, because I'm not afraid that something's going to happen. I just don't like being in that crowd, and I don't like being around that many people or anything like that. So feeling afraid as if something awful might happen, like I'm not sat there thinking there's a lot of people in this building, what if a fire happens? I'm sat there thinking there's a lot of people in this building, what if they're watching me, what if they notice me, what if I don't react in the way that I'm supposed to react, and they notice this and start judging me or anything like that. So yeah, and as well, like, my anxiety is quite sound related, and I know that it's going to be loud. It's not being afraid of something awful happening, it's being afraid of just the environment in general. So I would probably tick this pretty low. But if you're going out every day thinking, I'm going to be mugged, I'm going to be in a car crash, I'm going to be somewhere where there's, what if there's a fire, what if there's somebody robs the bank or something like that. Yeah, that's being afraid of something specific happening, which is a lot different to just being anxious about the world and the world that you live in. So yeah, if those are thoughts that are kind of going through your mind of like, you are afraid because there's something going to happen, or in your mind there is something going to happen, then that is definitely something that you need to be checking. So the doctor or the counsellor or the CBT therapist or whoever it is that is doing this will total up your scores. They'll add them all up and they'll give you a score. Well, they won't even give you the score, but obviously you'll know your own score or whatever as you are doing this. Or they might give you the score, particularly if your score is lower than a previous week. And they might say, oh yeah, your score last week was 16, now it's down to 14. That means that's really good. You've dropped down in the severity of your anxiety. So that's really good. And then you've also got one last question at the end. Same as I think the PHQ-9 had a similar sort of thing. So if you checked any problems, how difficult have they made it for you to do your work, take care of things at home, or get along with other people? And then you've got 4 boxes again, not difficult at all, somewhat difficult, very difficult, or extremely difficult, and you've just got to tick which one. So if these have been absolutely debilitating, you've not been able to get out of the house because of your anxiety of going out into the world, going to the shops, going to places where other people are or anything like that, interacting with other people, then, you're absolutely up there as being at least somewhat difficult because you've changed your life, you've changed what you've been doing because your anxiety is controlling your life. If you have been putting off doing housework because you're anxious, and people can be anxious about these things, and particularly like if I've got a lot of housework that needs doing, I've been having problems with my back recently. It makes it very difficult for me to do housework because a lot of things are kind of stooping over and it causes pain in my back. So things like washing up and sweeping and mopping the house and hoovering, these are things which hurt. So these have at times gone on top of me. If I've been in a lot of pain and not able to do them, that's a day of housework that has gone by that I've not been able to do. This happens several days in a row. Suddenly you find the entire worktop is piled up with washing up. You've got bits all over the floor that you need to hoover. You've got a bathroom that you need to clean. That makes me anxious to get it done. But that can have a negative effect, because that anxiety then becomes, it's too much. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming the amount that I've got to do. There's so much housework that needs doing now because I've let it get on top of me. I've let it do this. So it becomes a lot more difficult to then do it, even though you'd think that would become a motivating factor to get it done, but it doesn't. It becomes an inhibiting factor. It becomes more difficult to do. So yeah, the housework part is definitely something that I would check. Probably always minimally somewhat difficult, because I struggle to do housework when I'm anxious. So I struggle to go to work, especially if I'm really anxious. I struggle to go to work for sure, because, and you know, there's not many days where I've actually had a mental health day off work, which is completely valid. You can absolutely do that. It's completely valid. But there's not many days where I have done it, but there's been days where I've been very close. And sort of, I'm in work today as I'm recording this at 12:30 today. And I need to leave at 12:20. If at 12:10 I'm really feeling that anxiety, it's difficult to get out that front door. And that would count. Even if I still go to work, it's difficult to go to work. It's hard to go to work. And you know, if I'm at work and I'm at the computer and just staring at the amount of work that I've got to do, that's difficult. It makes it difficult to do the work if it's getting on top of you. So yeah, you know, analyze those sorts of things. Try and do it quickly. You know, do things particularly stick out to you. But yeah, you've got to be honest with that. So that's one thing I didn't say at the start of the video, and probably should have. You need to be honest with these things. If you're just ticking because you think it's going to get you the best course of treatment, you're just ticking that every day you're having these problems, then it's not an accurate response. It's not an accurate sort of finding as to what you've got, what your anxiety level is. So you need to be making sure that you're honest, because they're going to use this in weeks to come. Has your anxiety come down? So if the first one, you really want treatment, so therefore you're ticking everything at 3, and you get a score of 21 on your anxiety, you're going to be referred through to CBT or whatever, and or potentially more than that. And then your next one you're going to come to, you're going to score a 16 because you've been honest with it. Well, you're still in that severe bracket, but they're not going to be, you know, they're going to be thinking, oh wow, treatment's really working for this person. But actually, it was just because you weren't honest in the first place. So yeah. That is everything to go through with the GAD-7. We've got one more of these scores sheets to go through, and that's the HADS, which is the HADS score, or Hospital Anxiety Depression Scale. And we've got that to go through, and then we have covered all of the diagnostic tools that have ever been used for me. I am looking up other diagnostic tools that are being used, and I'm going to go through various things with those sorts of things. But yeah, with that, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a fantastic couple of weeks until the next video. And just remember that, you know, you deserve the help that you can get. If you are struggling with anything, make sure that you do seek help. There will be various links to charities down in the description below. So make sure you check those out. Go and see a professional, or post a comment in this channel. I'm not a professional. I can't give you a can't give you a diagnosis, but I can see where I can help. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.